After 1,916 kilometres of wind, rain, blood, sweat, tears and barbed wire, the race has reached the Pyrenees, where apparently it can really get going. Hello, according to Andy Schleck, the Tour de France begins today. In which case, as Geraint Thomas asked last night in a rhetorical tweet, what the hell have we been doing for the last week and a half? In G's case, of course, riding a storming race, but the Tour's character will change today as it heads into the high mountains with the first altitude finish of the race up here at the ski station of ardiden. No more Cave, Greipel or Rojas, at least once we're through the day's intermediate sprint and off the flat. A whole different cast of characters will be up front grimacing for the cameras. Now here's today's route map, 211 kilometres, setting out from Cunego on a slow ramp up towards the serious climbing, which is all backloaded into the last 80 kilometres of the race. First up is the Orquet d'Orsizon, which is new to the Tour. Then the giant Col du Tourmalet, topping out over 2,000 metres. Then the final 1,700 metre climb up here to the finish, where the main action should take place.
During the course of the race, every rider is going to consume the contents of about 150 of these, the humble bidon. In fact, by the time they reach Paris, the collective peloton will have quaffed over 24,000 bottles. Now, apart from the two they start the stage with every day, the vast majority have to be distributed around the bunch by the humble domestique, the unsung hero of the peloton.
Now what's up with Jens Voigt?
He's gone back to get as many drinks as possible for the team. I'm just trying to count how many he's taken on board there. 3, 4, 5, 6 and possibly a 7. He's probably carrying pretty close to 14 pounds of water, which he's got to drag through the main field and distribute to the rest of the lads.
How many have you got?
14.
You got a cold one? They're empty, aren't they?
Yeah, they are.
Go and get some more. Can't get the stuff.
We are looking at the chase now as we gaze out to ardiden. As high as you can see, that's where we're going. And Geraint Thomas is still up there with Jeremy Roy of France, and the gap just come inside 3 minutes.
Well, Sammy Sanchez said, Phil, at the start of the day, this was one of the stages he wanted to try and get himself a victory on. He's a long way down in the standings in 20th place, 5 minutes and 1 second behind Thomas Voeckler, but still the indefatigable man on the front is Jens Voigt, powering away. It's an unbelievable style of his, and he's really trying to dish out the pain to everybody else. I'm certain we're going to see a move coming from the Schleck brothers very shortly.
Well, after the way they rode the Tourmalet with their team, they're going to have to do something now, and I think they are planning an assault, not necessarily worried about the riders ahead, but just to test how strong Contador and Cadel Evans are. I think they must launch an attack here, even if it's not for the day's victory. 2:53, I have to say that gap is starting to come down a little bit quickly to the yellow jersey group, but there are quite a few riders in between now trying to reach Thomas and Roy. Biel Kadri is still on his own in 3rd place. And then we've got this big group building of some 8 riders led by Philippe Gilbert and the Olympic champion Sanchez.
Well, Ruben Perez is the man in there, and he's going to do everything he can to try and dish out some pain and really set up the assault of his team leader, Sammy Sanchez, sitting there in 2nd position. Wears that golden jersey, the Olympic champion from 2008 in Beijing, and this is the kind of move that he would have been looking for.
Just look at the speed that Perez is riding this hill now, having been riding all day at the front. This is his swan song for his team captain, Sanchez. Meanwhile, Jens Voigt is doing the same for his team captain, which is either Frank Schleck or Andy Schleck today, but we're going to find out. He's been absolutely fantastic, Voigt. He finished off the Tourmalet, and now he started here on ardiden.
He's amazing. 40 years of age at the end of this season, and still he's got the ability to ride like that. Andreas Kloden has had a terrible day through the mountains today. Phil, all he can do is hope to try and limit his losses on the slopes of this climb.
Absolutely. He just got back in time to be dropped again there on the climb. This is now Sanchez at the front as they continue. Philippe Gilbert's up for the fight in that black jersey. Laurens ten Dam is there. They are coming up on the 2 leaders. According to our computer, they're about 2 minutes 19 behind Thomas and Roy, and in between is one lone rider, Biel Kadri of AG2R.
Sammy Sanchez finished 5th overall in Paris-Nice at the start of this year. He won the Grand Prix Miguel Indurain, and he won a very big mountain stage of the Tour of the Pays Basque. But in the peloton now, and what remains of the peloton this afternoon, it's still Jens Voigt on the front, but still sitting pretty comfortably there in the yellow jersey is Thomas Voeckler.
So Perez, having done his bit to get his teammate away and having been in the lead for most of the day, is now dropped back to see how many's left in the peloton. He won't be surprised to see the black jersey of Leopard Trek setting the pace, and I don't suppose he'll be surprised about it being Jens Voigt either. This is at the tail of the bunch now, as again they're all being dropped off the back by the speed here. Andrei Zaitz has gone for Kazakhstan.
David Moncoutier again going backwards. He's a tough character. Watch out for him over the next couple of days, because he'll look for a move on one day or another. Vladimir Karpitz now getting eliminated. Also Jérôme Coppel, the leader of Soor Sudjason,
who is the great young French hope for the future, but he's having a rough ride in the Tour de France today. Kreuziger wiped out. Jens Voigt just stamping on those pedals, trying to tear his bike in half, I think. He'll go to his legs, can go no longer, and then he'll drop off.
Well, just having a quick look there are 3 riders from Leopard Trek in the front end of the peloton, but also there are 4 riders in here from Saxo Bank. Chris Anker Sorensen just over there nodding his head on the right-hand side in that pale blue jersey. On the left-hand side you can spot Richie Porte, and sitting in the middle dancing on those pedals, number 1, Alberto Contador.
Well, Cadel Evans is in the red jersey down there of BMC, and he doesn't look under any stress at all. And neither is the yellow jersey of the race leader. Voeckler can start to imagine he might be in yellow again tonight. They've got to get a lot of time on him if they want to take it off his shoulders. And now, if you get a glimpse of Andy Schleck's face in second place, I'll tell you what, Jens has got him breathing pretty hard.
I'm sure he has. Jens can dish out a fair amount of pain. Well, we've talked a lot about Wales. I also noticed an Irish rider in this group, because number 101 is sitting very comfortably in about 10th position, and that, of course, is Nicolas Roche,
who is having a good Tour de France and is finding himself in the right places at the right time. He sits 13th overall. He could accelerate up there tonight if he finishes with this very select group. Canadian flag flies on the right for Ryder Hesjedal. Sadly, Ryder's unhitched from this group at the moment. As we look at the 2 leaders, that they're parting the ways, and there is a massive crowd up Les Ardiden today, all the way to the summit.
11 kilometres to go to the summit. That's an awful long climb. They've still got to be in the saddle here, Phil, for I would say pretty close to 25 to 30 minutes.
I think I'd be in the saddle for the next 2 hours, because this gets steeper and steeper. Look at it switches back here as they climb so quickly up to the heights. Bang, this is the legs now of Roman Kreuziger. He really has hit the wall on this climb.
Well, he tried, he got across and almost got across an incredible gap now as Andy Schleck takes over control of the peloton. Looking over his shoulder at his brother, he's got Chris Anker Sorensen alongside him. He's trying to work out who is there and who is about to move.
11 kilometres left to go. That's for the leaders, and they still hold an advantage of just on 2 minutes.
Jens Voigt, job done.
1:54 is the gap there as they continues to come down. Saxo Bank are now showing their strength, and that must be a little bit of a shock now to Andy Schleck. He has tried to destroy them, and all of a sudden he's surrounded by them.
You might just have seen there the lips moving there on Thomas Voeckler. He's talking to his teammate in front of him to keep this tempo just like it is, because the closer they get to the finish, the more chance Thomas Voeckler has got of remaining in the overall lead. Luis Leon Sanchez, who started the day in 2nd place overall, is no longer in this group, and so Thomas Voeckler has got himself a 2-minute 26-second buffer over Cadel Evans.
Well, once again, another move is coming here, this time by Quick Step as they start the ride just off the back there.
And so, in fact, we can see here that Thomas Voeckler's starting to prize a slight advantage here over the rest of the riders in this field. There, Saxo Bank are pretty much in control. Andy Schleck has dropped down into about 10th position alongside Contador.
Well, everybody committed now. Plans have been laid today, and they're not all going the way they expected. First of all, they didn't think that Geraint Thomas and Jeremy Aura would still be heading the charge up the final climb of Les Ardiden, not with the 2 mountains we have come over. But they are picking off the breakaways. This is Kadri now. They're bringing back into the fold. These boys are now racing for 3rd place on the mountain.
Yeah, but Sammy Sanchez has already flown the coop. He's a little bit further up the road here, and he's going to eat into this advantage one by one. He is the man who might get the victory for the Basques this afternoon, and strangely enough, he's not even from the Basque land. He's from Asturias.
He is, and he's got a nice little tempo there. He's riding with Jelle Venendert, who is the first-timer in the Tour de France and has been exceptional, always at the front helping Philippe Gilbert whenever he can. And now he's going away ahead of Gilbert at the moment.
Well, he was a man brought into this Omega Pharma Lotto team to look after Jürgen van den Broek in the big mountain passes. But unfortunately, van den Broek, one of those victims of the multitude of crashes we had in the first week of this race.
10 kilometres to go to the summit and the end of the day of racing. And all day long, Geraint Thomas has been on the attack for Wales and for Team Sky. And with him there now is the Frenchman, Jeremy Roy. They could not have thought these boys would have survived. All of the breakaway companions have been swept up and kicked to the back of the race now. In the meanwhile, in the pack, the race is getting serious. Number 11 is Andy Schleck. Behind him is brother Frank. Behind brother Frank is number 1, Alberto Contador, the winner for the past 2 years.
And sitting right in the middle there is the man in the red helmet, and that is Cadel Evans, looking calm and cool as a cucumber, I would have to say, on this climb. But nobody, not one of the pre-race favourites, Phil, has yet thrown anything into the pack.
Well, Leopard Trek have used all their team up now. They're coming down to less of an advantage than they were earlier on, because Saxo Bank, the teammate of Alberto Contador, got 2 very strong men here, including Richie Porte, the first-timer in the Tour from Tasmania, who had such a brilliant debut into the sport at top level last year in the Giro d'Italia.
I'll tell you what, Sammy Sanchez is doing an incredible job here, Phil, because he is now only a minute behind the lead of Thomas and Roy.
Yes, that could spoil the party of celebration in the British Isles and also in France if he does get up there, because he is a strong sprinter, gold medalist from the Beijing Olympic Games. Just caught a glimpse of Thomas de Gent there. I think he was going off the back of this group, won a stage in the Tour of Switzerland and looked very good in the mountains there.
In the pink and blue jersey of Team Lampre, a quick glimpse there of Damiano Cunego riding exceptionally well in there. Just trying to see whether or not Alberto Contador has got any weakness at all. He was complaining a couple of days ago of a bad knee, but he's surrounded by his teammates this afternoon. He's got with him Richie Porte. I think he's going to count a lot on Richie Porte, the Australian, in the last part of this climb.
Thomas Voigtler continues to do that yellow jersey proud. The master of the Tour de France is showing them that he's riding with pride here on Bastille Day. He's not going to lose his overall lead tonight. He doesn't look as though he's stressed at all, and he's always ridden near the front. And another man we never talk about, far left of our picture, Ivan Basso, the Italian. He doesn't look troubled at all either.
Well, I'm still waiting to see which one of these big names is going to make the first move on the day, and it may well be the man you just mentioned there, Phil, because Ivan Basso is actually starting to look rather comfortable, and he's asked his team for an acceleration.
He said, let's lift the pace and see how good these other boys are. Basso's looking straight ahead, he's second left, as he now concentrates, because he's asked for an increase in the pace here, and he's getting it as well.
And immediately moving up into third position, the yellow jersey, Thomas Voigtler, still looking very comfortable.
Sylvester Schmid is his faithful man in the mountains for Liquigas Cannondale, as he starts to tap out the rhythm now. Basso has moved into second place. A little bit of a grimace on Thomas Voigtler, but he's still very, very much there and ready to go with anything.
Well, he's just sticking in there, looking further back. These big names, Phil, are riding a long way down the pack. 11 and 18, the Schleck brothers. Number 1, Alberto Contador, still out of the saddle. A little bit further back, you might just have noticed Richie Porte is still in contact.
Yes, Cadel Evans also slipping down that pack at the moment, and Schmidt has really lifted the ante here now for Ivan Basso. Looking at the computer, it's 34 seconds now. The 2 chasers are behind Thomas and Roy up front.
I don't know how much longer Thomas Voigtler can keep this up, Phil, because he's using a massive gear, a gear which is much bigger than anybody else. He's going up this climb using his strength. Now, normally a climber uses a small gear and lots of suppleness and tries to keep the revolutions up to around about 100 revolutions a minute. But Voigtler is really digging into his suitcase of courage this afternoon. He wants that yellow jersey. He's got that buffer, 2:26 over Cadel Evans. He doesn't want to relinquish yellow on today's Bastille Day.
And I don't think he will. But these 2 riders are still 8.8 kilometres from the summit. There's no releasing of the pain on this climb. They climb till they touch the finishing line, the vast majority then simply fall off. There is no dropping of the plateau at all. Saxo Banks just lost Daniel Navarro, teammate gone there for Alberto Contador. And I think Cadel Evans just lost his last teammate coming off the back as we were looking then.
It's getting down to the situation now where it's man against man. Kevin Duert, quick step, just slightly off the front, looks over to see the new Liquigas Cannondale team. Cadel Evans moves up there into 4th position behind Thomas Voeckler. He's still looking very calm and collected. But this group, it's getting smaller, Phil.
Very much so, and it's all under the pressure of Sylvester Schmidt here, who is just delivering a series of high-tempo riding. These are the 2 leaders. They're 8.6 kilometers from the finish. It never dips at all now. It stays uphill all of the way.
Well, not too far behind now. I make it 20 seconds, and probably just coming around the corner there is the Olympic champion Sammy Sanchez. They've just stopped the cars, and there you can see the 2 leaders. Sanchez riding across this gap with Van den Dert.
As we're now looking here at the chase behind those 4, it is very difficult to work it all out now, but the Olympic champion Sammy Sanchez is in the first chase behind the 2 leaders. The big names, the Schlecks, Contador and Evans, are still in that very, very compact and quickly reducing peloton.
But look at the spread of the main field though, Phil. From the first 2 riders on the road, Thomas and Roy, it's only 53 seconds back to the yellow jersey group of Thomas Voeckler. The race, instead of splitting apart, is all coming back together.
From Beijing as Olympic champion to the slopes in the Pyrenees of Les Ardiden, the Olympic champion Sanchez is homing interview with the newcomer on the Tour de France, Jelle Van den Dert, really doing the pacemaking to bring him up, and they're not on the same team, of course. Philippe Gilbert is still looking good, but he's caught in the peloton here now. He's been passed by the peloton. Can he lift his game and get back in there? Lawrence Ten Dam is being swept up. Trofimov is being swept up.
Slowly but surely they're picking up all of these riders. A great job of work by Liquigas Cannondale, and now number 6 is dropping off the back. This is Chris Anker Sorensen being eliminated.
Well, they will apply plan A in the end, Saxo Bank, because the last man supposedly to stay with Contador will be Richie Porte, the Aussie.
Well, now looking at Lawrence Ten Dam, 101 in difficulty now. This is Nicolas Roche, and just in front of him is his teammate Hubert Dupont. They're trying to pace him back on as Rigoberto Urán goes backwards for Team Sky.
Well, they're throwing everything into this final climb now. Nicolas Roche here, whose father Stephen won the Tour de France in 1987. He's just opening a gap. His father's on the tour too. He'll be shouting at him from somewhere to try and get him back onto the end. He's going off the back, just over 8 kilometers from the finish today. Ten Dam is concentrating himself. He's not given up yet.
Well, I tell you what, I've got my fingers crossed for Thomas Voeckler here this afternoon, Phil. He's doing a storming ride as we see Philippe Gilbert going to the back end of this group. Voeckler is itching to keep that yellow jersey. He wants it for 1 more day, and he may well keep it for 2. If he can hold it at the top of Les Ardiden, I reckon he might be able to get over the Col de l'Aubisque tomorrow.
I really wouldn't worry about Thomas Voeckler. He's handling himself very well, but we are hearing the splitters come at the front. It's not good news for Geraint Thomas. He's been distanced, and it's been proved. Here's the shots. Sanchez is pressing on here with Van der Dert. The other 2 are now behind these 2 as they push on for the finish of today's stage in the mountains.
Well, it's not surprising. It was a great ride, a brave ride by Geraint Thomas, but this man is a champion. He's an Olympic champion, but he's only got a 38-second advantage over the yellow jersey group.
Well, that's still Sylvester Schmidt there of Liquigas Cannondale pacing Ivan Basso. I've not been terribly impressed by the riding of Andy Schleck today, who sits now behind Cadel Evans. There's no move coming. They're not doing anything yet. He's destroyed his whole team on the Tourmalet. 7.5 kilometers to go to the summit now. Schmidt is still there, and I have a feeling Basso is waiting for his moment.
Well, he's got that concentrated look written all over his face. He's asked his teammate to do all of the tempo making, and that's because he feels good. You don't ask a teammate to sacrifice yourself if you don't have form. Nicolas Roche is being spent out of the back in company of his teammate here, Hubert Dupont, number 103. He's got to not panic at a situation like this and hope that he can ride himself back into some kind of rhythm and not lose too much time before the summit of this climb.
Still Schmidt setting this relentless pace at the front with his team leader Ivan Basso right behind him. Philippe Gilbert hanging on now, but still has a little bit of a rhythm there.
Well, the crack is starting to appear, and the gap keeps being left there, Phil, by Andy Schleck. Schleck has not been able to stay on the wheel of Cadel Evans. He's had to pull himself a little bit inside out there to come up to Evans's wheel. It's because of the pace being dictated here by Liquigas Cannondale.
It may be a little overconfidence on Andy Schleck's side. He's not looking as good now. As I say, he's destroyed his team and he didn't destroy his rivals. They are still sat there on the climb. This is Van den Aert. Prepared now to go up. My goodness me, if Jelle Van den Aert was to win the stage, we'd all be rushing to the record books to find out exactly who he is. First Tour de France for this man, and he showed us he can climb. He had a great Giro d'Italia last year, so we know he can climb, but he's proving it now to everybody in the Tour de France.
And he was a great ally for Philippe Gilbert in the Ardennes Classics in the early part of the season. Jérôme Roy now about to see what it looks like at the front end of the big express from Liquigas.
Well, Ivan Basso first shot into our living rooms when he won a stage of the Tour de France, the only one he's ever won, and guess where he won it, Paul? In La Mongie, where we came through earlier today. Now he sits second wheel here behind Sylvester Schmidt, his teammate. As they continue to go, I thought we saw Tommy D there in that group. Now that's a superb ride. He will accelerate up the overall classification tonight.
Yes, he will become the overall leader of Team Garmin-Cervelo. He started the day in 17th place, looking for 4:22, but it's a question of what the gaps will be at the end of the day. The yellow jersey on the shoulders of Thomas Voeckler is doing a phenomenal ride here this afternoon, while everybody else is really being put onto the back foot.
As riders continue now to fall away, Jeremy Roy has tried his utmost to win today. He was the first man over the Tourmalet, but it's done for now. One mountain too far for the French rider. The same has to be said for Geraint Thomas. As the peloton climbs steadily up the summit, Geraint Thomas has finally surrendered to what's left of the field here. They're 46 seconds behind the new leaders up the road now in Van den Aert and Sanchez, and they're coming. Now, I don't think we've ever had a bunch sprint on top of the mountain, Paul, but it's coming together.
It is coming together, but I think as we get closer to the summit, we'll start to see a few cracks appearing in this main field. Great to see Tommy Danielson there with his blue helmet, still dancing on those pedals of his, out of the saddle, number one, Alberto Contador, not yet showing any signs at all of weakness. And Rein Terme is in this group, number 151, and he's the rider from Team Cofidis. He could be the rider assuming the mantle of best young rider in this race tonight.
The rider in the blue helmet there is the American from Boulder, Colorado. That is Tommy Danielson. His first Tour de France. It's taken him an awful long time to finally get selection on the squad for Garmin-Cervelo. He's got it now, and this is always a sad sight. He's given every bit of strength he possesses, Geraint Thomas, and now it's a matter of survival to the finish for him.
Well, Van den Aert now swapping turns with Sammy Sanchez, still looking very calm and concentrated. He would love to win here in front of all of the Basque spectators who've come out. You might notice every now and again there are an awful lot of Basque flags at the side of the road, but their gap over this group, Phil, is now extended to 52 seconds.
Well, just where does Schmidt get this strength from? He's sitting there tapping out that rhythm. He's hurting everybody. They're coming and going. He's just sitting there in the service of Ivan Basso. He can't hold on for much longer, surely. We're coming up to 6 kilometers to go for the two leaders.
Well, we've had a serious decanting of the peloton this afternoon. Cadel Evans still looking reasonably comfortable on the far side. Damiano Cunego for Team Lamprey. It's good to see him in with a chance of a victory on a stage like this.
Surprise names indeed. It looked as though Cadel Evans was concentrating but wasn't under terrible pressure. I don't think the same can be said for Andy Schleck. I think it's hurting him right now. Brother Frank looks okay. Contador always looks easy on the bike when he gets out of the saddle. He's a gangly person. He has this ability to accelerate, sit down and kick again. The pink jersey is Cunego.
Well, in fact, also noticed in there the red and white jersey from Radio Shack, Levi Leipheimer, after the bad luck he had at the start of this race involved in a very nasty crash. He's in 35th place, over 7 minutes behind. Looks like he may well have recovered.
All lost in 2 crashes in 2 days, otherwise he would have been right up there. He's had a podium place in the past, finished 3rd. Now that's all that's left now of the leading group. In the main group in the Tour de France, all of the projected favourites are still there, and so too is the Maillot Jaune, Thomas Voeckler.
Well, every kilometre that ticks by right now is going to be a boost to the morale of Thomas Voeckler. He's going to think, right, it's Bastille Day today, I will continue to wear this jersey. Cadel Evans concentrated in his effort in the red helmet there, just trying to breathe a little bit deeper to make sure he stays in contact with this group. Thomas Voeckler has got a teammate with him in the group as well, Pierre Roland, who's an extremely good hope for the future of French cycling, while Team AG2R here are trying to nurse their leader back into this race, Nicolas Roche.
And they're doing a good job, actually. He hasn't completely snapped the elastic yet. He's hanging there within sight of that break. 5.5 kilometers to climb for the two leaders. The gap has moved out to 63 seconds. Schmidt requires a little bit of help now. Voeckler doesn't care because the boys up front won't affect the destiny of yellow. Frank Schleck there looks okay. Alberto Contador rides close to Andy Schleck. They must have waited for the attack. It just hasn't come. 52 is Tommy Danielson there, sitting on the back wheel of the Petit Prince. That is Damiano Cunego. Cadel Evans in front of them.
They are going extremely fast up this climb. The reason is they're picking up a little bit of a tailwind, which means it's going to be quite difficult for any of the sprinters, for any of the climbers to accelerate on the slopes of this climb when we get up to the top and start to climb out of the tree zone. But this man could be the big revelation. This man Van den Dert from Omega Pharma Lotto is putting Omega Pharma Lotto back onto the racing map.
What a race they've had, Omega Pharma Lotto, with the success of Philippe Gilbert. And even though they lost their protected leader with the broken collarbone, shoulder blade, and punctured lung, Jurgen van den Broek, that was a real sadness. And they had a crash on day one and lost another one of their big names there as well, in Jurgen van den Wallen. Anyway, they've gone. These two are going ahead of the peloton. Another kick by the Olympic champion. 5 kilometers still to climb. It never relents, this mountain. And when they do come out into the open, they zigzag left and right up hairpins. They're going to get the wind in every direction.
Well, it's still Liquigas Cannondale, Schmidt on the front. Basso looks extremely calm and collected there, Phil. He's not got out of the saddle. He's riding extremely well with suppleness of a climber. On the back, Reim Terame, 151. And still Albert and Andy Schleck consistently looking over his shoulder all the time, looking at Alberto Contador, who looks to be struggling a fraction here with that gear.
I don't think Andy's at all happy here. Contador will be assessing him. He's in the best position to, just sat behind him. He's in a Schleck sandwich at the moment, Frank at the back and Andy at the front. But he's got them where he wants them. He's not going to be too worried, although he's got to attack them sooner or later. He's behind them quite big on time. Voeckler there, just in and out the saddle, as he was when he won his yellow jersey back in 2004 and wore it for 10 days. He, like Thor Hushovd, said he would lose it today. Not the case. Contador, he's settled in. He's going to let this day pass by without doing anything if nobody attacks him.
I have to say, I think number 18, Frank Schleck, looks an awful lot easier than his brother Andy Schleck, as these riders now also go inside the mark of 5 kilometers to go. And still, Sammy Sanchez is extending his lead in the overall standings to a minute and a quarter over the group. He'll be climbing up the standings tonight.
4.5 kilometers to go for Euskaltel-Euskadi's Olympic champion, number 21, Samuel Sanchez. Jelle van den Aert is with him. The gap at the moment around about a minute 14. They've wiped out everybody in between these 19 men who are chasing, and the maillot jaune of Voeckler is still there in third place. The other favourites are there, but in varying degrees of effort, I suspect.
Yep, and they're not going to do very much, I think, to pull this man back this afternoon. And Van den Dert is doing a great job of work. He's been a professional, Phil, actually, since 2004, riding for the small Jadati team. But in 2008, he moved across to France to ride for Française des Jeux before moving back to Belgium and joined the Omega Pharma Lotto squad.
So Belgium have found themselves another climber as well. Now, Frank is grimacing, looking across at Andy, trying to assess. I think he said something to Andy there. Well, Alberto Contador doesn't understand English, and I doubt he understands German either, so he may not know what they said.
And he most certainly does not understand Luxembourgeois.
Indeed, indeed. But he's gone forward because Andy went forward. At least he knows what to do there. Now, there is Basso tucked in on the left of our picture. Voeckler riding to another yellow jersey tonight on a perfect day for the French on Bastille Day. But there's no Frenchman going to finish off at the front unless they bring him back. And you know, if they brought these two back, it would not surprise me in the least if the yellow jersey didn't go for the stage win.
Well, well, you can see.
Ooh, look at that face.
He is really being put into serious pressure here by Van den Dert, the Belgian rider who, in the campaign for the classics in the Ardennes, was a real stalwart for Philippe Gilbert. But today, he too is finding a little bit of freedom.
Well, that's how professionals suffer, and can suffer even more. He's hurting himself, Sanchez, but not refusing to push on the pace here. He knows they're coming, but at the moment it's good news. They're going clear still. This is Alberto Contador, the greatest climber in the world, but he doesn't look it right now. He's had to do an acceleration because whatever we said about Andy Schleck, he's just attacked, and Contador saw it and has gone. So did cadel Evans. They've all lifted their game. The 4 favourites are going.
Well, that was just a little dummy move there as Andy Schleck came to the front, and immediately the response came from Alberto Contador, and they're all slowly... Oh, there's a move by Frank Schleck now. It was going to be the 1-2.
That is the 1-2. It was the dummy by Andy. Now they've got to go. Basso's onto him straight away as Frank Schleck has made the move. Ivan Basso has come across, gritting his teeth, but Contador has gone, and Andy Schleck is really gritting his teeth. Also, the Petit Prince, Cunego in pink, has joined up as well. Evans is there too. They've got to control Schleck now.
Well, this is all the damage at the back, but Frank Schleck, I think this year could very well be the secret weapon for Leopard Trek, because he's gone again and he's forcing Alberto Contador onto the defensive. Cadel Evans just sitting there watching the party. Little nod of the head there for Andy Schleck, saying, no, I can't go over the top of this one.
4 kilometres to go. We're watching the real race here now. The 2 boys up front have lost about 10 seconds of the lead with that attack and that counter-attack, as they now have unshipped Levi Leipheimer a little bit there. He's going to have to hope they slow down a bit. Now here's the attack we expected earlier from Ivan Basso. He's waited for the Schlecks to use energy. They've had to come back at him. Contador, Basso, cadel Evans and Frank Schleck.
And still in contact, 1-8-1 in the yellow jersey, Thomas Vogler. That was a series of attacks there. Nobody could actually get a little bit of time between themselves and everyone else. Schleck looking very nervous, looking left, looking right, waiting for another move to come from his brother, and here it is again.
This is the next attack by the champion of Luxembourg, and Contador has kicked again, so too has cadel Evans. They're going after Frank Schleck because long term, they always think Andy is the man to beat to Paris, but Frank is throwing in the ricochets now, and they're not giving him any leeway at all.
Matching every move and every person in the red and black jersey, BMC Racing. Cadel Evans looking very calm and collected. He doesn't need to go on the attack today, Phil, because he's the highest place of all of the pre-race favourites.
Absolutely, but no yellow jersey unless he gets 2 minutes and 6 seconds ahead of the yellow jersey, and the yellow jersey is right with them. Tommy Voigtler enjoying his day. Now they're all looking at each other and say, well, have you got any more to throw at me? Because we're all still here.
Well, Ivan Basso realises this is the moment to go forward. And let's not forget, there are still 2 riders off the front of this race, Jelle Venendet and, of course, Sami Sanchez, the Olympic champion. 1:08, sliding backwards now. This is Jean-Christophe Perrault of France.
Well, as Perrault takes his final gasps there and then decides, I can't handle these lifting of the speeds, he slipped away from a group of what was 19 riders here. This is Tarami at the front, the leader of the Cofidis team. A good climber he is too, struggling as well. The only rider up front there now alongside the yellow jersey, and he's in the green there, is Pierre Roland, the last survivor of Europe car.
Well, Pierre Roland, a big star for the future, rode extremely well in the Critérium de Dauphiné, and he's come up to the lieutenant position for Thomas Vogler. Vogler now at 3 kilometres to go, Phil, is looking very confident of retaining his yellow jersey at the end of today's stage. They've tried to open up a little bit of a gap on Alberto Contador, but Alberto Contador today has provided himself present and correct.
They've tested him and almost done themselves, I think, today. 2.7 kilometres. No, you're absolutely right. It's a yellow jersey again for the Frenchman tonight. He's relied on the climber just in front of him. Pierre Roland has helped him all the way. The last survivor of the Europe car team. Andy Schleck looks very determined once more. He's now got the Italian on his shoulder. Ivan Basso, Contador's dead centre. There's 10 riders going to the summit, and in case you've forgotten, there are two riders still in front, and the gap is going up at 1:14.
Yeah, Jelle Venendet just around the corner from these riders, and Sami Sanchez. The courage that this man has found today, Thomas Vogler. He's not one of the great climbers of the sport, but he certainly knows how to really dig deep and stay in contact. Where's another move by Frank Schleck again?
Well, that's another acceleration, and this time they're a little bit slow in the reaction because they had Roland on the front, who is only concerned to look after his yellow jersey, and that is the gap. Now they're going to have to react from the main field.
Well, this was the move. We were expecting this to be the big 1-2, and this is going to be the recipe, Phil, throughout the whole of the Pyrenees and the whole of the Alps as well. The two Schleck brothers, I think, are almost on identical form in the Tour de France this year, if not, Andy, a little bit behind Frank.
Well, it could be. At the moment, Frank Schleck only has to get about 100 metres in front of Cadel Evans, and he'll be sitting in second place overall tonight, because that's the spread between these boys at the front of the race. Pierre Roland is still kicking there to protect the yellow jersey. Frank Schleck cannot get the time lost in the remaining kilometres of the race today. He was looking for 2.5 minutes to become the maillot jaune, and he's only got 2 kilometres to do to get that.
Well, he was only looking as well on 3 seconds to leapfrog ahead of Cadel Evans, and he's got the form. Let's not forget he's a former winner of the Alpe d'Huez stage of the Tour de France, and the way he's pedalling here, Phil, he really looks like he's going for it.
But he keeps checking over his shoulder. As I say, this hill just zigzags all its way to the summit. There's no relaxation on the climb. If he overjudge it, he will crack. These two are just going through the crowds as big as we've ever seen at Les Ardiden rather. Looking at the next finish there, it's 2 kilometres to go for Van Aert and for Samuel Sanchez.
Well, Samuel Sanchez right now, Phil, is probably thinking to himself, well, I don't know how I'm going to get around this guy in the sprint finish towards the end, because Van Aert has not won many races throughout his career, but he's a man who's always been fairly close to the front end of the race. I think the best position he had this year was he in fact finished 6th in the Flèche Wallonne race, in fact, and that was to help his own teammate Philippe Gilbert get the win.
Well, he's now on a mission. He's now trying to catch those two riders. I'm not sure he can bridge a minute 14 in 1.9 kilometres. He may have found he's got away just that little bit too late, but time is what he's after as well. He'll be up into second place overall in the Tour de France tonight as we stay in the mountains for the next couple of days. There doesn't seem any more reaction coming from this field now, and it's left to Ivan Basso to set the place, followed by Cadel Evans, Pierre Roland, Tommy Voigtler. 2 kilometres to go for Schleck.
Well, Schleck has really got the pedals ticking over extremely quickly now, nice and supple, nice high pedaling cadence as he goes around these corners as if this climb is actually flat. He's pulled out a good 20 seconds on the group of the yellow jersey, but for him what he's doing, he's moving up probably into second place overall at the start of the day. Now Cadel Evans makes the move.
And look at this, Cadel Evans feeling his second place overall, as it would be if it had stayed status quo tonight, is now going to chase Frank Schleck if he can. He's doing his turn at lifting the pace. These are riders now behind the race here, being tailed off all of the time, and sadly that looks like Tommy Danielson has just lost contact.
Well, the gap now as Ivan Basso accelerates over the top of Cadel Evans, they're now starting to open the gap on the yellow jersey. Alberto Contador moves, and again shadowed by Andy Schleck.
And shadowed by Tommy Voigtler as he gets across to join the other two. It's true what they say about the yellow jersey. It makes you ride like two men, and Voigtler has gone across to the back wheel of Basso.
Well, he almost got to the back wheel, but I think he was pushing himself to a bridge just a little bit too far. Then now, as we can see, Andy Schleck trying to bridge the gap to Basso and Cadel Evans. Andy Schleck knows he can't let Cadel Evans get too far up the road.
Well, Contador and Schleck has danced away to the leaders there, but how much more have these riders got? They've given everything to try and break each other up. Cadel Evans now is pushing on. It looks as though Tommy Voigtler, knowing he's going to stay yellow tonight, hasn't got a lot more left. Pierre Roland has stayed with him. He'll lose seconds, but he won't lose that yellow jersey tonight. Go on, kick again.
Well, he's given absolutely everything. A little word of instruction to his teammate Pierre Roland. What he has to ride now, Phil, is sensibly. He can give away 2.5 minutes on Cadel Evans. Well, he can give away 2:25 and still remain in the lead at the end of the day.
But it's steep, steep all of the way. 1 kilometre to go now for the two riders at the front, Samuel Sanchez and Jelle Van Aert, who wiped out Geraint Thomas and Jeremy Roy at the start of this climb. They raced for first and second. Frank Schleck, the Luxembourg champion, is free to fly, but can he close down 47 seconds in a kilometre? It's all uphill. I suppose it's possible, and that is 47 seconds. You can see them.
Well, in fact, he's coming even closer now, Phil. He's gone through that point at 25 seconds behind Sammy Sanchez and Van Aert. As you can see, Cadel Evans knows what he has to do. He's also pulling himself inside out.
Well, Voigtler has his faithful teammate there nursing him up to the finishing line. Cadel Evans here is racing to keep a high overall, but this has been a good day for the Australian. Basso has now put his colours on the mast. He's a candidate for victory. So too Damiano Cunego in the pink. The champion defending us at the back here. He must wonder how the world of cycling has changed in the last 12 months.
Well, Cadel Evans riding really like a man possessed here, taking the responsibility of the chase behind Sammy Sanchez and, of course, behind Frank Schleck. But still, these two men, Phil, are surviving. They're looking around every corner. He says, have a look down there. We better keep working together because those guys are coming back very quickly, and especially this man, Frank Schleck.
Sanchez knows he has a problem with that Belgian cyclist. He doesn't know how to get rid of him, and he's gambling Van den Aert. He's going to jump in before they get to the finishing line, I think. And they've got to play it carefully because Frank Schleck is coming quickly. Now, as our camera has opened a gap on the Petit Prince there, and look at this, they better go soon, because Frank Schleck now is going to take this race, as he did in the Grand Bournon, as he did on Alpe d'Huez. He's never won in the Pyrenees, but that, I think, is about to change. But there goes the Belgian. He saw it coming, and I'm not sure Sanchez realised that attack came at 500 metres.
Well, Sanchez was right onto his wheel there, and he's gone onto his wheel around the corner. That was a moment of panic by the Belgian. Sammy Sanchez is in the ideal position now. As you can see, Van den Aert is tuning the lead out.
Well, he's got to keep on going because Frank Schleck is not going to relax the chase now. Sanchez is gambling here. This will be his biggest win since his gold medal in Beijing. I don't think there's a second kick coming from Frank Schleck here, but I think there's a second kick going to come from the Belgian rider, the revelation today in the mountains, but the champion of the Olympic Games in Beijing. He's got it in the end. The final acceleration from Sammy Sanchez, and he's disappeared into the mist of Les Ardiden, and he's going to win this by far and away his greatest one-day victory, apart of course from his gold medal win in Beijing. Terrific ride for Samuel Sanchez. He'll climb up the overall a little bit tonight, but that wasn't his aim today. He wanted to win the first of the big mountain stages of this year's Tour de France, and he has.
Well, that was a greatly well-timed sprint for him as he comes up, just keeping himself in second place. Yellow Van den Aert, he made the mistake as the acceleration now, and it looked like there's a little bit of a gap here. Where is Alberto Contador?
Seconds being lost. Contador's been unhitched, and Cadel Evans is in this as he goes through on the inside. There's fourth place at stake here. Cadel Evans on the wheel of Basso. Contador has been dropped as he comes up the climb. The champion is losing more seconds on his own playground now, and a lot of seconds as Basso gets fourth, Andy Schleck gets fifth, Cadel Evans is sixth, Cunego is seventh, and Contador, the clock is counting. It's not a lot, but it's time lost in the Tour de France for Contador.
And it's time for Cadel Evans to open up the gap. Thomas Voeckler will keep his yellow jersey this afternoon. Look at his face, he's looking at the clock, Phil, and he knows, well done, thanks very much, mate, still in yellow.
Except in French, of course. An impressive showing from Voeckler, who spent pretty much the entire day in the company of men who'll be contesting the podium places in Paris. There's the stage result. Samuel Sanchez 7 seconds ahead of Jelle van Endert. Frank Schleck couldn't quite catch either of them. He was another 3 seconds down. Ivan Basso, Cadel Evans and Andy Schleck finished together 30 seconds behind the winner and 13 seconds ahead of Alberto Contador, with Damiano Cunego in the gap. Thomas Voeckler finished 7 seconds behind Contador with his teammate Pierre Rolland. Tom Danielson was a solid 11th. Arnold Jonassen made it an even better Bastille Day for France by riding himself into the white jersey of Best Young Rider. Nicolas Roach was 17th, Philippe Gilbert 24th, and after his long day out front, Geraint Thomas came in 36th to explain his near disaster on the descent of the Tourmalet.
Yeah, I just slipped going around that first bend, and I just didn't want to brake too much, and then just kept sliding and just went off. And
it was just one of them, was it? It wasn't mechanical or anything? You weren't locking up your back wheel or anything?
Not the first one, no, and then the second one, I obviously had a bit of mud on the tyres, and I lost it a bit in my head, and but yeah, I had to change bikes, and then I was okay then. So
I don't know if you noticed on that first corner there was a little Welsh flag just before you lost your line. I was wondering whether that caught your eye on your way round.
No, I don't know what it was. It just must have been something on the ground, because Voeckler said he slipped as well. So for sure there was something.
Gee, you're needed very shortly on the podium. But what about climbing the Tourmalet? That must have given you enormous satisfaction today, the way you attacked that.
Yeah, for sure. Because at the start I wanted to just get stuck in, and race it and try and get in the break, which I did. And yeah, like just gave it everything really to try and stay away. And obviously, 7k to go was thought it was quite close, but it was still about half an hour pedalling. So
you've done brilliantly. You've got yourself right back in the race. Well done today.
Cheers, thanks.
Now, Geraint had a soft landing on the grass when he came off. Andreas Klöden went down harder in the larger crash on the same bend. He came in nearly 8.5 minutes down, so that's the end of his hopes for a high placing. Robert Hazink was an even bigger loser, conceding 17 minutes 44, the white jersey, and any realistic chances of making the podium. Now, he started the day 5 minutes and 1 second down, the worst off of all the main contenders, and who knows, it may be that a stage win is all Samuel Sanchez comes away with from this tour. If he does, I'm sure he'd settle for it, given his terrible first week. But when he watches the stage back, he might think he can attack again and climb back up into contention. And he's already in contention to be the king of the mountains. In fact, with double points for summit finishes, he's the new leader of that competition. Right, here's how things look tonight then. No change at the very top, but other than Thomas Voeckler, the top 8 now consists of podium contenders. Frank Schleck is second, Cadel Evans is third, then it's Andy Schleck, Ivan Basso looking like more of a threat than most people thought he would be, Damiano Cunego, Alberto Contador and Samuel Sanchez.